Gentlemen, how are all of you today? It's good to see you. I'm back here for another video. It is a Saturday morning here in Sydney, and by my understanding, a Friday night over there in the States. And I'm not sure what time it is everywhere else, but I'm glad you're here. Now, I want to begin this video by saying, yes, I know that men have affairs too. That's just a fact, right? Some men have affairs, just like some women have affairs. But the title of this video is The Real Reason a Fifth of Women Have Had Affairs, okay? And the reason that I'm covering this topic is because I want all of you guys to understand. See, I went from being a video where I was just pissed off about stuff, right? Sorry, I went from being a channel where I was just, you know, I was frustrated by a lot of stuff. I was on the same journey you guys where I was just talking about it and feeding my mind. But now I understand. So I'm not angry anymore. But I want to help you guys understand too. So I want you guys to understand what's going on in this article so that you can just accept and move on if it happens to you. Because there's a high chance that if you're in a long-term relationship, particularly in marriage, that it will happen to you. And it's nothing to be mad about. It's just the way things are. All you can do is your best. So, let's get started, shall we? The real reason a fifth of women have had affairs. As our sex survey reveals an infidelity bombshell, women who chose to stray tell stories every man should read. And I agree with that. I do agree that every man should read these. Shocking female FEMAIL survey reveals 40% of women have been unfaithful, and 47% of their partners remained oblivious to the infidelity. So yes, and that goes both ways as well. Wife Stephanie Burton says she does it to feel like a sexual being again. Her story begins. Standing in the hallway of the home she shares with her husband and her teenage daughter, Stephanie Burton drops her overnight bag onto the floor and calls out to her family. She kicks the bag from her husband's path as he comes to greet her, and at the same time makes a conscious effort to push aside the events of the past 24 hours, a stolen night in a hotel with her lover, and return her attentions to family life, to reality. Reality, for Stephanie, means being a loving wife and mother, the busy woman in the office who gets things done, the daughter her aging parents turn to for help because she lives much closer than her two older siblings. I just get on with it all to the best of my ability and without complaint, because all those things are important to me, stresses Stephanie, 40, who lives with her lawyer husband Michael and their 14-year-old daughter in Manchester. But there's another side to me that I now realize was seriously neglected until I started having an affair 18 months ago. Part of me wants to shake off the burden of responsibility once in a while, to be seen as a sexual being above everything else for a few hours. It sounds hard to understand or accept, yet the double life that Stephanie keeps a secret from all but her closest friend, someone she says has enjoyed the odd dalliance herself, is less unusual than you may think. According to an in-depth sex and relationship survey conducted by Female, 1 in 5 British adult women have had an affair, and 40% of those have been unfaithful to their current partner. What's more, nearly half of those husbands and partners, 47%, according to the women we polled, remain oblivious to the fact that they were, or indeed are, being deceived. Today, in the second part of our exclusive nationwide survey, we share the fascinating insights gained by talking candidly to more than 1,000 women of all ages about their sex lives, asking whether they've strayed, and if so, what they did to heal the relationship in the aftermath. The results and testimony from women like Stephanie suggest that infidelity for women has as much to do with wanting a distraction from the mundanities of real life as physical thrills. And it confirms just how dire and far-reaching the consequences can be for both parties. Stephanie, a merchandiser for a large department store, is adamant she has no intention of leaving her husband. It would break up her family, cause heartache, and disrupt a life that makes her broadly happy. She says, I love our home, we have a good social life, and I still have sex with Michael once a week or so. Okay, I find him a bit dull after nearly 20 years together. He's a workaholic and so consumed with his job that I often wish he'd find something else to talk about. Now, you may have noticed, and rather astutely, although it was pretty freaking obvious, that I paused and I was like having a what the fuck moment during reading that particular portion. And let me tell you why. Because I was actually going to put a little caveat in there, a reasonable caveat, and say, look, if any guy or girl that's in a long-term committed relationship is not getting sexually fulfilled by their partner, then I can understand why they may stray. I'm not justifying it. I'm not saying that should happen. I'm saying I can understand why that may happen. We are human, right? Men have sexual desires, women have sexual desires. If those desires are not being fulfilled, particularly in the context of a committed relationship, which we can reasonably expect within the context of such a relationship, that those are needs that would be mutually met, okay? That was going to be my caveat. But she's still fucking her husband. Which leads me to another point, which I've raised previously, and I think I actually put, in fact, I know I left this right at the bang end of one of my videos that I did. And I said, man, if you're not fucking her, somebody else is. And ladies, if you're not fucking him, somebody else is. It's just how it is most of the time. Don't shoot the messenger. All right. So, okay, I find him a bit dull after nearly 20 years together. He's a workaholic and so consumed with his job that I often wish he'd find something else to talk about. Interesting. But I love him and can't imagine spending my life with anyone else. In fact, I hoped our sex life might eventually be reignited by my affair. I don't know, maybe some kind of strange twisted logic to that. But don't you think that if it didn't get reignited, then you'd be like, okay, that didn't work. Let's stop doing what isn't working, right? I'd hate to spoil what we have, and I'm incredibly careful not to get caught. The fact I travel for work makes it easy to get away with the odd extra night here and there. Sad state of affairs, you know, it makes everyone question what's going on when partners are away. You know, I've never really been in a situation where I've had a partner that's sort of stayed away for work or anything like that, so I can't really relate in that sense to that. I guess I don't know. I don't know how I deal with different situations, you know, and we don't either. And this is why this is, you know, the only way to really avoid a bad situation is to just avoid the circumstances that would potentially facilitate a bad situation. And before I continue, I just wanted to thank Kay to the Swiss for that $10 donation. He says, so MGTOW is freedom. And Jazz Jackson, my man, says, finally got on a Sydney MGTOW live stream. Appreciate your dedication to the cause, my friend. I appreciate you too, Jazz. Thanks, guys, for those. Though, and here's where it gets extra interesting, though Stephanie's lover is also married, she claims she doesn't feel jealousy or even guilt towards his wife. Neither of us wants anything long term. If he announced he was leaving his wife, honestly, I'd run a mile, she insists. So this is obviously two people who aren't feeling sexually fulfilled in their relationship and are engaging in an illicit relationship outside of that, both perhaps having some common ground in terms of what they are, the way they relate to each other. Again, not justifying any of this. Where are we here? Maybe I should feel guilty that I'm betraying my daughter as well as her dad. But the way I see it, I'm happier at home while my sexual needs are being met elsewhere. Isn't that better? You know, I don't know. I don't really know how to take this, because from a logical perspective that makes sense. But from an ethical perspective, it's really not the right thing to be doing. Right? And look, and you know, these thoughts that these people are having about why things might get fixed from certain approaches, you know, I've thought these things, you know, in the, like 10 years ago when I was in past relationships, I've thought these things as well. So this is why I get it. Doesn't mean that I think it's right. Right? Where are we here? All right. Of course, many people would disagree with this assessment, yet Stephanie is extremely self-aware and says she regards her affair as totally separate from her marriage, an exciting diversion with, as she sees it, minimal risk. It's become a way of nourishing a side to her that family life quells. This is what so often happens in an affair, says psychotherapist Lucy Beresford, author of Happy Relationships. Women can feel a little exploited, by the way, as can men, to different degrees, to varying degrees, in their real life roles. They're working hard at being a brilliant wife, fantastic mother, dutiful daughter, and pushing themselves at work too, but something's missing. Now let me just flip that script a little. I'm going to reverse this and make it a father thing, right? This is what so happens in an affair, says psychotherapist Lucy Beresford, author of Happy Relationships. Men can feel a little exploited to varying degrees in their real life roles. They're working hard at being a brilliant husband, fantastic dad, dutiful son, hardworking overtime fanatic, provider, lawnmower, fixer, masseuse. And they're pushing themselves at work too. But something's missing. Yes, it's called reciprocity. Having an affair becomes a way of attending to the part of their psyche that feels neglected without the pain and disruption of walking away from their marriage, Lucy says. And she adds, it is possible to overcome a sense of feeling neglected within a marriage, but you have to acknowledge it to yourself first. Sometimes feeling abandoned or ignored by our partner is so horrendously painful, we bury the emotion and act it out by seeking affection or desirability elsewhere. And I see this all around me, guys. I see it all around me with unhappy marriages on both men and women's sides. Viewed in this way, infidelity becomes about much more than sex. Straying is a way of staying in the marriage without having to rock the boat by making it plain. This doesn't make sense. Straying is a way of staying in the marriage without having to rock the boat by making it plain that certain needs aren't being met. It softens the blow of feeling that your priorities so often seem to come after everyone else's. I know many of you can relate to how that feels. These don't tend to be conscious conversations people have with themselves, says Lucy, but deep down a trade is being made. The affair is what stops them from getting angry and what's wrong with their life, so they don't actually have to do something about it. There are, of course, many other reasons women are unfaithful. An affair can be an act of revenge on a partner who strayed first, or a way of expressing frustration at unreasonable behavior. For others, it can simply be a deep-rooted pattern of behavior connected to low self-esteem, lack of care for others, or going back to destructive early relationships. Or it can be entirely out of character, becoming part of an escape route out of a miserable relationship. This was the case with Rachel Morgan, a 38-year-old translator whose affair with a colleague, she says, provided the wake-up call that led to her ending a 4-year relationship. And I'm going to continue with that, but I just wanted to read one comment first. 2 comments, actually. Sergio says, if you're married, you need to stick to it. If you sail on another reef, you weren't in love in the first place, and you were just lusting after each other. Look, I am in agreement and I'm in disagreement on 2 parts of that, Sergio. So I agree that if you're married, you should stick to it. If you're going to sail to another reef, the marriage should be ended first. But marriage is death till us part, right? But you can't know how you're going to feel about someone in 60 years' time. I mean, I know men that have faked their death to get away from their nagging wife in their 80s, you know. So, look, it's really not as black and white as that, as much as I'd like it to be. And you know, I got married to someone not out of lust, but I actually genuinely loved them, and things changed the way that I felt over time, and things deteriorated on both sides in different ways, and you know, we ended up separating, which you know resulted in me no longer being married, and I'm not going to get married again. It's just not something I plan to do. And I also wanted to give a special mention and a special thank you to the Price is Right review, one of my longtime followers and a regular donator. I really appreciate you, man. He says, long time no chat, my man. Hope you're doing well. I saw the recent MGTOW movie. Very well done. Guys, if you haven't seen that movie, go check out Hammerhand. He's done a movie on MGTOW. You can get to it by the link on my community tab. He says, Price is Right says, personally for me, I'm a Christian MGTOW following the lifestyle of Elijah, the biblical MGTOW, not Blue Pill King Ahab. Well said. And Awas Kamkwa, another loyal follower, says, I lost my room mum yesterday and I'm going to be out 9 to 10K for a funeral because most of my family can't save money to save their lives. I'm in a very bad place right now. Awas Kamkwa, I want you to email me, brother. Let's have a chat. I'm really sorry to hear what happened to you yesterday, man. This is what the brotherhood is all about, looking after other men, being here for you guys, and I am here for you, man. So please reach out. I would let's have a chat on the phone, man. Touch base with me. But let's continue talking about Rachel Morgan, the 38-year-old translator whose affair with a colleague provided the wake-up call that led to her ending a 4-year relationship. She says, living with my ex was like being the mother of a grown man, she said. He was incredibly childish, hopeless around the house, constantly wanting me to fix his problems for him. I'd stopped fancying him. We weren't even having sex. Before I go any further with this particular story from Rachel Morgan, the 38-year-old translator who left her relationship after 4 years, I'm going to put something out there. Do you think that possibly, perhaps, this man was raised by a single mother that treated him like a child, that fixed his problems for him, that was also hopeless around the house? I'm like, maybe he grew up in a perfectly functional household with a mother and father and it was happy families and all that shit, right? I'm fortunate that I had a mother and father household. I know some of you guys didn't, and you know, that doesn't take away from any of you, because you all have the capability to grow past where you were when you were brought up. She said, I'd stopped fancying him. We weren't even having sex. How funny. How funny. And I don't mean like ha funny. I mean funny. Interesting. Because have you noticed that when women don't respect men, they don't have sex with them? And they tend to not respect them if they see them as weak or incapable. But yet we're meant to be vulnerable and weak and show our weaknesses and talk about our feelings. When talking about our feelings doesn't actually fix anything at all, right? It's a great outlet amongst people that we trust, that we believe will understand what it is that we're going through, to be able to relate to it. and perhaps give us some semblance of feeling like we're not the only one that's going through it or have gone through it. Despite Rachel's unhappiness, Rachel from London didn't feel a strong drive to leave her partner, who was the same age. Was he paying the bills by any chance? Was he covering your expenses and doing everything for you other than the manly stuff around the house? Was he the beta male provider? Because that would explain to me why you hadn't had a strong drive to leave her partner prior to that. And also, who was the same age? That's another interesting thing, because what I'm noticing is that the happiest relationships are ones where the girl is younger and the guy is older. And that's partially because, well, that's the attraction of dynamic, right? Like, how often do you see people where they've got like a strong sort of like a male leader, right, and a female that just is like ride or die with him, where there's this really strong yin yang symmetry going on? Like, when's the last time you saw that between two people of the same age? Or where you've got an older woman and a younger guy? Not too often, I would put forward. Not too often at all. I don't see it. I've got a keen eye. I'm watching everything. Right? I observe everything going on around me. Right? I've taken to observing female behavior, male behavior, human behavior very, very, very intently to understand and get to the point where I'm able to actually share this knowledge with you guys. So she didn't feel strong drive until, that is, a work project took her away for several weeks and she began spending time with a male colleague. I started to feel more mentally stimulated, she says. We were having interesting conversations and I found his company relaxed and fun. When we started having sex, it felt inevitable, but it soon became about far more than that. My lover was bringing out the best in me, and that made me look at my relationship and appreciate how much it was dragging me down. I realized I didn't want to fix things, I wanted to start again. And guys, I'm just saying, like, many of us have had these realizations about relationships that have dragged us down, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally. And look, sometimes it's just a relationship that's not necessarily dragging us down, but it's not the dynamics of the relationship aren't facilitating us focusing on our goals. So let me give you an example of that. So the previous girl that I dated, who is actually still one of my followers and I'm still get along really well with, we, because of logistics with distance and the way that my job was, and I had a lot of stuff going on and I just wasn't really able to spend the time with her that I would have liked to. The reality is that I probably would still be with her if time wasn't such a rare commodity for me and I didn't have such lofty goals. Like, if I was just happy to be a 9-to-5 schmuck and just do that for the rest of my life and just be a wage servant and not have any goals and not have any ambition, then I would probably have had a lot more time to be in that relationship. And it was a good relationship, I'm not gonna lie, and that's just not how things were. And as a result of my choices, I've been able to dedicate a lot more time to things that serve me and serve this cause on a higher level. And there are some really exciting things come up. I had a very, very, very interesting conversation with someone over in New York yesterday who is in the media scene, and not CNN type media scene, but like live podcast style thing where I can have back and forth discussions from both sides. So that could be really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing where that heads, and I will make sure I keep you guys updated if anything comes of that. But I'm not going to drone on about that. Let's continue. Extricating herself from an unhappy relationship in this way wasn't intended, and it was painful for both parties. But ultimately, the spotlight that the infidelity shone on Rachel's relationship couldn't be switched off. An affair often forces us to look in the mirror and explore whether we like who we've become in our relationship, says Lucy Beresford. Whether or not you get found out, it becomes a driver for change. Yet our survey, which looks beyond the number of confessions of clandestine affairs to what happens next, found that fewer than 1 in 10, or roughly 8% of couples, sought counseling after discovering that one partner has had an affair, even though the emotional fallout is often extremely complex. Couples therapist Hilda Burke is not surprised. The thing that's creating problems in a relationship needn't be a lover. It can be your difficult in-laws, work, an addiction, or even your children, she explains. Certainly in my practice, those tend to be the issues that people bring to therapy far more than wanting help following an affair. Not necessarily, says Hilda. If a couple have the emotional intelligence to recognize that the affair was a symptom of bigger problems within the relationship, and that's exactly what it is. Sorry about that, just itchy. Affairs are exactly that. They are the symptoms of bigger problems within a relationship. That's just a fact. That's what it is. That's if there were no issues within the relationship, the affairs wouldn't happen on either side of the relationship, male or female. It's just as simple as that. So yeah, if the couple have got the intelligence to realize that the affair is the symptom of bigger problems within the relationship and have committed to staying together and working at fixing them, then they may well be able to do without therapy. Whether your marriage has been threatened by infidelity in the past, or you find yourself nodding along to some of the emotional motives for women to stray, the best cure for a lull in your relationship is not to talk about it and seek help if you are not satisfied. There are some other videos embedded in this article, which I put in the description below, including a man setting up his cheating girlfriend with fake wedding proposal. So it's like a 67 video if you guys want to watch that. And I just want to put out a thank you to a couple of gentlemen, Andrew P and JMP Jr., who have donated in the last couple of days, and an enormous thank you to one particular gentleman. You know who you are. It was about a week and a bit ago. You donated via PayPal, and I'm going to be sending you a personal email in response to that. So thank you. And guys, if you do want to donate, links in the description below. I've got Subscribe Star, Patreon, and PayPal. I appreciate anything, guys. And if you feel that this has given you value, by all means. But if you don't feel that you've got any value out of this video, or if you just like the entertainment, I appreciate you anyway. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time out to serve yourself up some red pills. Appreciate all of you, gentlemen, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.